I am proud to present a project that I worked on for a while. I don't know exactly how long I worked on it, but it's a book that I translated from French into English called From Frankism to Jacobinism by the German, Jewish, and later Israeli scholar, academic, librarian named Gershom Scholem. So this comes from a series of papers and research that he did starting, I think, in the 1960s. And the French version of this dates from, I think, the late 70s, maybe 1979, from a series of lectures that he gave at some French universities. This book has been published originally in Hebrew, and then the French version. So the Hebrew version, I'm not sure, maybe from 1970. The French version, maybe from 1979. And then the English version from 2019, brought to you by me. So the text of it is about 130 pages. And you can see here from the inside cover, the subtitle is The Life of Moses de Bruschka, alias Franz Thomas von Schoenfeld, alias Junius Frey. So this is a biographical book. It's about one particular person, and I don't know if you've ever heard of the Frankists or the Sabbateans, but the movement basically started in the mid to early 1600s. It was started by a guy named Sabbatai Tzvi, who was the early modern Jewish Messiah from Eastern Europe. He's got roots basically in Greece, and he attracted a huge proportion of the early modern Jewish community from Antwerp all the way to the Ottoman Empire. These people believed that he was the Messiah, and particularly that in the year 1666 that something big was going to happen. He had a bad end. He kind of, his whole movement just exploded and petered out and was destroyed, and that's a whole story in and of itself. The author of this book, Gershom Scholem, wrote a 800 page biography of Sabbatai Tzvi, which is the scholarly work today on the man, although, of course, many other books have been written after him. The successor to the Sabbatean movement was a guy named Jacob Frank. That's where this word Frankism and the term Frankist comes from. It means the followers of this guy named Jacob Frank. And he was a Jew who picked up the more esoteric and I guess you would say antisocial aspects of Sabbatai Tzvi's teaching and started essentially called a cult in the modern sense, the way we think of cults. He started a cult and moved around to several different cities, starting in the Russian Empire, I think in modern Poland, and ending up in Germany. Austria, actually. It was actually Austria at that time, not Germany. So the subject of this book, Moses de Bruschka, comes out of that situation. He was from a family of rich tobacco merchants, because what the Jews would do is they would buy the concession to the tobacco rights in the Austrian Empire, and then they would be the only ones who could sell the tobacco, and they made a lot of money with that, but you had to have a lot of money to get into it in the first place. So you have this financially very solid background, and then it turns out that you're a member of this cult, which is an offshoot of this movement, and this book follows this guy's life as he goes from being a member of this cult to being in the court of Joseph II, and I think possibly Marie Therese as well, to moving to Strasbourg at the outbreak of the French Revolution, and then moving to Paris to be a full-blown member of the Jacobin Club until he finally gets guillotined with no less personage other than Danton, Chabot, and he's actually killed. He's ordered to be killed by Robespierre, who of course meets his own end not too long after that. So this is a very interesting book because during that journey from being the child of a rich Jewish tobacco merchant who's a member of a Jewish cult to being a Jacobin who's getting guillotined in the French Revolution. They also happen to start this guy, Moses de Bruschka, a.k.a. Schoenfeld, a.k.a. Frey. He starts a Kabbalistic Masonic brotherhood that has conflicts with the non-Kabbalistic Masonic brotherhoods. So the reason why I went to the effort to try to translate this book and to make it available to people in English, because it's not available, is one, because I wanted to learn about it, but it shows the connection between secret societies and these really strange religious movements that come out of Sabbateanism, which are especially interesting considering their sexual practices, the connections between those movements, those cults, and Kabbalistic Freemasonry, and finally, French Revolution liberalism. So it's like this little link in the intellectual historical chain is so dense, and there's so much going on here that it's pretty impressive. So I think I've pretty much explained the premise of this. The book's about 130 pages long. There's about 200 footnotes. About half of the book are the notes. So it's heavily documented. Gershom Scholem is an expert on Kabbalah, so he knows what he's talking about in terms of all the Jewish background, and he did all the research for this in the National Archives in Paris, some Masonic archives in Copenhagen, some of the national libraries in Austria and the Czech Republic. So it's impeccably researched. You just have to decide if you want to trust Gershom Scholem, who himself was, he was really close friends with Walter Benjamin. And Walter Benjamin was best friends with Theodor Adorno and the other Frankfurt School guys. And Walter Benjamin was funded by the Frankfurt School until Walter Benjamin killed himself in 1940 in Spain. And Gershom Scholem's brother was a communist who was executed, I think, in Buchenwald. Anyhow, he was killed in one of the German concentration camps, executed by gunfire, according to the conventional Orthodox history. But that happened because he was a super hardcore communist, not because of his Jewishness, but because he was a German Bolshevik, basically. So Gershom Scholem, and also I think Scholem, when he died, his eulogy was delivered by Habermas. So this guy is existing within an environment of all of the people that we generally recognize as being, super huge, big problems. But then, does that mean that Scholem has access to information that we would think is really important? Does he have more access to information than we would have because of these close connections and things? And the fact that his writings, although are mostly available in English, they're certainly not publicized or taught. And this book, for instance, has never been translated into English. So, got to make of that what you will. But I would suggest that it's worth your time. And, if I sell some copies of this, I'm not going to get rich off of it, of course. So if you're interested, I'll put the link in the description. But I would suggest that you wait probably about a week at least before you buy it, if you are going to buy it, because I've got to go over this copy and make some formatting changes that I don't like in the way that this came from the printer. So I've got to edit the layout and make some changes to that. So I would say don't buy it right away, or you're going to get a copy that's got some errors on the inside. What else? I think that's probably it for now. Okay. Thank you for your time.